Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we talk about what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. Now, the West has developed a propaganda structure using information and psychological warfare operation centres with multi-million-dollar budget, which are effective at using the media, but they lack any sophistication. I mean, the Western media is spoon-fed narratives by the political establishment to parrot that entirely without question their narrative. Almost every media outlet publishes the same lies and propaganda. It's actually reminiscent of the situation with the COVID hoax, but now it's the situation with the Ukraine and Russia. Now, the narrative for the past 2 years is Russia is bad, it carried out an unprovoked invasion of the Ukraine and will now be defeated. Now, like professional gamblers, they bluff and they raise the stakes repeatedly with a straight face, unaware that the most sensible people know exactly what cards they have in their hand, and it's a seriously losing one. That's why the latest large-scale propaganda operation against Russia has failed almost before it began. I mean, yesterday, media outlets published a series of articles and news items, all with exactly the same tone. I mean, that one headline from Business Insider read, "The West has finally given Ukraine the opportunity to cut off the snake's head." Now, the article's main message is that Ukraine's allies, read masters, have lifted all the restrictions on attacks on Russian territory with Western weapons, which will now allow the Ukraine to fight for real. Now, between the lines, we can infer that the terrorist attacks on provincial Russian cities will just increase many times over. Now, before I continue, I'd like to make a short appeal to you watching to help me fund the channel on my website, SCOBRICSInsight.com. You can do this by making a small donation, and by doing that, you just click on the thanks button at the bottom right of the video screen. So thank you in advance if you're going to do that. In turn, Bloomberg published an interview with the Ukraine President Zelensky, who stated that the Ukraine has prepared as many as 14 new brigades and is ready to launch a counter-offensive when the next batch of Western wonder weapons arrive, which he says is imminent. He then said, "We can force Russia to end this war this year." I mean, Ukraine is not losing and it's not at a dead end. Ukrainian forces are now better positioned in terms of manpower than they were a few months ago. He said, "The next step is to arm the brigades in preparation for a new counter-offensive." Now, the man's obviously consumes far too much Colombian marching powder and is completely delusional. Just like his statement a few months ago that the Ukraine had lost only 30,000 men. That was totally ridiculous and laughable, as is this latest outburst. I mean, yesterday's information was also circulated that the US has allocated a new arms package to the Ukraine worth more than $2 billion. This indicates that there is and will be more money and weapons available for the Ukrainians to continue to attack in vain. However, it's important to manage expectations, and another message is gaining traction that Russia cannot afford to win this war because it doesn't have the resources to rebuild the Ukraine. Now, do look up videos of the transformation of Mariupol, which was destroyed by the Ukraine Azov brigades, and the changes that have made to that port city are pretty incredible, so that is a laughable assertion. However, the most egregious leak was dedicated to the findings of the highly pertinent survey of the European Council on Foreign Relations. And the survey's authors report that the majority of Ukrainians are prepared to relinquish part of their country, but they'll never relinquish their independence or their wish for membership in EU and NATO. They also indicate that they will not accept any demilitarization of their country. So they're as delusional as Zelensky. I mean, according to the survey, Ukraine is prepared to fight to the last man. The authors believe that information attack on the Russian leadership has got them worried and looking to surrender before Russia collapses. Now, to make Russia's surrender more palatable, Western information specialists have decided that they'll send a letter to NATO saying that Ukraine should not be accepted into the alliance and perhaps Russia would accept this assurance. So they're saying basically to the Ukraine, you know, we are a suitable candidate, we'll consider you a candidate, but don't worry, you could just keep fighting Russia and being our useful idiots, and we'll continue to send you guns and missiles to damage Russia, but you're not actually going to become a member. We'll just tell you you could become a member. Now, what the Western domestic audience makes of this, I'm not really sure. I try and get something from reading the comments section, but they're of the major newspapers. But there's not really clear of who and where, so do come on to me on the comments section. I mean, the truth is the Western media are hiding as the Russian military is currently in control of the situation. It's making steady progress. I mean, over the last few months, the Russian army has advanced and taken many villages and towns while destroying vast amounts of the very expensive wonder weapons like Abrams tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, and Patriot missile batteries, not to mention killing or wounding tens of thousands of Ukraine troops. Now, the Western defence industry is going through a period of serious growth. The Russian economy, as I've covered in many videos, is strengthening. And its international ties in BRICS, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, EAAU, etc., as the EU, U7, G7 alliance become more isolated from the rest of the world. In the Ukraine, the economy and infrastructure are facing significant challenges, with its losses mounting at the rate of at least a battalion a day. I mean, it's having problems recruiting new soldiers. There's been a notable increase in the number of individuals fleeing abroad, as well as a surge in those avoiding military service any way that they can. In response, what has the Kiev regime done? Well, it's introduced new measures. I mean, the latest news indicates that morale in the armed forces is at all-time low, and the families of officials are fleeing abroad. I mean, exemption from military conscription for students is now being cancelled, and the mass conscription of women is planned. All female doctors now have to register for military service. Absentee summonses are being introduced due to a shortage of meat for the grinder. All of this, and Zelensky still insists that he's got plenty of manpower. I mean, Ukrainian prisoners have begun to be sent to the front, and that doesn't appear to me to be a plan for a decisive victory. However, if you just rewind the news slightly, it becomes apparent why the Ukraine's Western masters feel the need to instigate a sense of urgency in Russia. Just a couple of days ago, information came out in the Western media that the Ukraine is facing a financial collapse, i.e. bankruptcy in the near future. Well, who would have guessed that? I mean, Ukraine currently has a debt just of $20 billion just to major private creditors. That's not the IMF, that's people like BlackRock, etc. And the interest payments amount to 15% of the GDP. Now, following the start of the special military operations, the creditors granted Ukraine a reprieve, but that expires on August the 1st. The creditors to whom Zelensky is indebted are prominent entities such as BlackRock, various international funds, and they have significant influence over the Western elite, and they are not going to forgive Kiev's debt. I mean, Kiev has two options. Get funds for payments, and even if they get a 20% discount, which the creditors are theoretically willing, or declare a default. However, there's no available funding, as the billions in the last aid package were not actually provided in cash, so that creates a major problem. They've got no other income sources that they can use to settle their financial obligations. I mean, it doesn't have the funds to service its debts in the coming years. Plus, given the state of its economy, that's unlikely to happen at any time in the future. Now, the latest reports from Newsweek, The Conversation and The Economist make it clear that the Ukraine's bankruptcy is going to have a significant impact on its future financing, and it's going to shift the focus away from the confrontation with Russia. But the main point is that Kiev's impending bankruptcy is a signal that the Western world is losing confidence in the Ukraine's ability to achieve its goals, as in defeat Russia on the battlefield. This is especially pertinent in the light of Donald Trump's promise to end the conflict in a day, and a default would undermine Western taxpayers' willingness to continue funding the conflict. Now, if you look at the results of the latest EU elections, you'll see that parties who are opposed to the West's position on the Ukraine have won many more votes in countries all over Europe. I've also found out that Nigel Farage, who was pilloried by the political establishment in the UK for stating his opinion that NATO provoked the war, and that's shared by millions of other people, has just been elected to the British Parliament in the general election, so he's obviously more popular than they are. In any case, the bankruptcy of the Ukraine is inevitable to Western financial experts, since the main creditors do not believe in the victory of the West and its proxies, Ukraine, and they voted with their money. Now, even the Deep State Institute of the Study of War, which incidentally is run by the Kagan family, of which Victoria Nuland, architect of the Ukraine coup, is a member, wrote that time is running out for the Ukraine and that prolonging the war will allow Putin to achieve new territorial goals. This means that Putin must be urgently forced to agree to concessions, which is why Kiev's masters are now trying this bluff. Good luck trying to do that. But the main thing is Russia's leadership knows pretty well who they're dealing with. They're not, and haven't been fooled by the Minsk agreements. They're aware, as Putin has said, that the West is not agreement capable. Only an idiot who works with those who lie and cheat, and therefore Russia will continue till they've completed their goal, which is the complete and unconditional capitulation of the US NATO proxies in the Ukraine. Now, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. If you've enjoyed this video, you can help me fund the channel and the website SCOBRICSInsight.com by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the screen. Thank you. See you again soon.